The month of June is the month dedicated to devotion of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And so is the third Friday after Pentecost. That's the feast day of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. I love this devotion. It's one of my favorites, mostly because I think it's exactly what the world needs right now, especially in two different ways. The first is that often when we think of hearts, we think of romance, or we think of our desire not to be alone, right? And we want to be paired up with somebody. And I think that devotion of the Sacred Heart of Jesus purifies that. And I'll speak about that in a minute. But also, I think today that we have large doses of more kind of scientific understandings of the world in a way that make us sort of like feel estranged from devotional practices, right? So, for example, the human heart can be replaced, right? You can have a heart transplant. You can even put the heart of an orangutan in your chest or of a pig in your chest or whatever, and it doesn't change you as much as you might think that it would change a person. But Jesus instead is speaking our language, because we continue to talk about the heart in more ways than just that physical part of our body. It is a physical part of our body, and Jesus had a physical heart. But we continue to talk about the heart as the place where emotions happen, which is more of that kind of romantic sense that I mentioned earlier. There's no doubt about it. But also the place where moral decisions are made, right? That, you think about the way in which your conscience talks to you, that promotes you to do good things. It's like your heart won't let you do the wrong thing in some kind of way. We still talk about the heart that way. Or when we say take heart, what we mean is take courage, right? That courage somehow lives in our heart, in our chest, right? And also in some kind of way we speak about the heart as the center, as the very core of what a thing is, right? So when you say I know someone's heart, you are saying that you can ignore all the other things that you might know about a person's outside, but you know that person well enough to say that you know their heart. You know the core of who they are. Devotion of the Sacred Heart of Jesus is to get to know the core of who Jesus is, right? Jesus had a real physical heart, and it was wounded. They pierced his heart with a spear when they pierced his side, with a lance when he was being crucified. But there's this core of who Jesus is that is love, real love, purified love, a sacrificial love, the kind of love that burns and purifies all that it touches, right? And this devotion of the Sacred Heart is a devotion first and foremost, and above all else, a devotion to Christ. God's love for us through the symbol of Jesus' Sacred Heart, through that symbol that we have become familiar with through St. Margaret Mary Alacoque, who had these visions in the 1570s, where Jesus tells her that he wanted a devotion to him through a devotion to that image of his Sacred Heart, of him with his Sacred Heart exposed, on fire, encircled with a crown of thorns, and wounded by that spear. That Jesus wanted us to be devoted to him through that image. And I think that image does a great job of counteracting a lot of the bad things that we have in the world. Of course, Jesus tells St. Margaret Mary Alacoque what he wants to do is promote a real strong sense of devotion to the Eucharist and to confession, and also that we would go out into the world and make reparations for sin. Make reparations for sin. Now, what we mean by that is that the world is broken, right? Sin hurts the world, and we make that world just a little bit better by imitating Christ. The best way to imitate Christ is to take his Sacred Heart and make it our own. I love the images where you see Jesus where he's pointing to his Sacred Heart and his other hand is pointed towards you, the viewer, as if to say, look, you can have my heart. You can have my heart inside of you. You can go out into the world and carry out and live with my wounded heart in the world and make my body present to the world. That's a beautiful thing, especially since once you have Christ's heart living and beating in you, there's no more room for selfish love. There's no more room for your old heart, which was in its own way distorted and twisted, right, with its own pitiful excuses for love. You have instead the love of Christ inside of you for you, that you're thankful out of gratitude to God for, but also that you can take that out into the world and be really and truly in the image and likeness of God in the world. The world needs it, and you need it, right? You need you need to have Christ's heart in you, and you need to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. And that's what the devotion to the Sacred Heart is really all about. So may God give us the graces that we need to be able to increase that devotion. Amen.